Lately I've had some questions about how to work this bottom area right below the last of the branches of the trees where this trunk is. So I'm going to show you how to do that in this video. Here's a piece that doesn't have the trunk added yet. We have this yarn, which is the frame color, still attached, and we also have a strand that we cut for the tree color when we finish the last branch. So we're going to start by knitting the bottom left stitch. There's one stitch on that holder that we left there. So I'm going to just insert my needle through that stitch, and with the tree color I'm going to knit that stitch. And now I'm going to drape this yarn from where it's coming out at the center of the branch to where I just knitted that stitch, stretch it a little just to make sure I have enough drape, and then I want to pick up and knit 9 stitches along this edge, ending at this point where we tied off, while simultaneously tacking this draped yarn to the edge. So let's do that. First, let's observe that there's 5 ridges here, so we don't have enough ridges to pick up a stitch in each ridge. We're going to have to utilize some of the valleys or the strands in between the ridges. So I'm going to use all the ridges that I have. So I'll start with knitting the first one. I've ignored the drape so far. So now I'm going to go through a strand between 2 ridges, and I'm going to insert my needle underneath the draped yarn to tack it. I'm going to do that every other stitch that I pick up. Now I'm going to do in the end of a ridge, and now I'm going to use a strand, and I'm going to insert my needle underneath the drape. There's the draped yarn. Now I'll go through the next ridge. The draped yarn is underneath, so I'm not tacking it on this stitch. Go through a strand, go underneath the draped yarn to tack it. And now I'll go through a ridge, and I'll lower the draped yarn so that I don't tack it on that stitch. Now I've got 8 stitches, so I'm almost at the center, so I'll go through this ridge. I'm going to go underneath for that ridge. And then my 10th stitch is going to be into the center where I tied off for the branch. I've now tacked the draped yarn to the edge, and I need to pick up a total of 8 stitches and then knit this stitch off of the marker. So again, I've got 5 ridges, so I'm going to have to utilize some of the strands between ridges. I'll do that here. I'll go through a strand, a ridge, a strand, a ridge. I think I'll skip that strand, and I'll count at this point. That was my middle stitch. I've got 6 stitches, so strand, ridge gets me 8, and then I can knit this last stitch off of the marker for a total of 19 stitches. Let's count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 19. 19, good. Okay, so now I'm going to slip these stitches 1 by 1 or 2 by 2, doesn't matter, to another needle so that I can get to the other end to start the trunk area. Okay, so I've got them all slipped to the other needle. So turn to the right side. And note that on this corner is where we still have the frame color attached. We didn't cut it. So I'm going to start by just inserting my needle as if to knit and using the frame color, cast on 4 stitches. 1, this is a knitted cast on. Okay, and now we are going to be following the trunk pattern stitch on, if you're using the book, it's page 20. If you have the independent pattern, it'll be a different page number, but it's a green pattern stitch called trunk. And so I'm going to be following that. So I start out by knitting the first right side row and then performing a join over the last stitch in the frame color and the first stitch of the tree color. So I'm going to do that join by slipping the last stitch of the frame color to the right needle, slipping the first stitch of the tree color to the right needle, and then doing a knit through the back loop. So that's the way I do that, is I insert my left needle through the front loops with the left needle in front of the right needle, yarn around, and pull through a loop. And then turn and knit back. So now, because I don't like to turn when I'm doing a video, I'm going to purl backwards. I have another help video on this technique if you like to do that. I use this often for short rows or when I've got just a few stitches to work. Okay, and so the next row is to repeat these 2 rows twice. So again, I knit to the last frame color stitch, slip knitwise, slip the first tree color stitch, and then knit through back loops, and then knit back, turn and knit back, although I'm going to purl backwards so that I don't have to turn. Oops. I lost a stitch off the needle. Here we go. Okay, and then repeat again. Knit to the last stitch of the frame color, slip knitwise the first stitch of the tree color, knit through back loop, turn, and knit back. Okay, so the next row is row 8, and it says knit the last 2 stitches of the frame color. So that would be knit to these 2 stitches, and then knit front and back in the next stitch. And then join. So again, slip the last stitch, slip the next stitch. So note that as we're joining, we're working off or eliminating those stitches that we picked up and knit in the tree color. So with each right side row, we eliminate or decrease those stitches. Eventually, by the time we finish working this trunk area, we'll have worked off or across all of these stitches and eliminated them. So again, the next row is to turn and knit back. And then row 10 is to repeat rows 2 through 8. Row 2 is just to knit to the last stitch of the frame color. Slip, slip, knit through back loops, knit 2 together through back loops, and then turn and knit back. Okay, and this will be the same thing. Just knitting to the last stitch of the frame color, slip knitwise, knit 2 together through back loops. Okay, and then same thing again. Slip, slip. Oops. Row 16 is a repeat of row 8, so that's where we make another increase on the second to last stitch that's worked in the frame color using a knit front and back. And then again we do the join. And then we knit back. Okay, so if I look at the knitting, there's some little cast on looping at the very end, and then there should be 8 completed ridges. So 2, 4, 6, 8, including the ridge that's right below the needle. And this is when you're counting on the right side. So now I'm going to drop my frame color because it's time to add in the trunk. Okay, so I'm just dropping the frame color, and with this umber color that I'm going to use for the trunk, I just start knitting with that, following the instructions for row 18, which is the first row that's done in the trunk color. So I knit to the last stitch, and then I do the join. And then turn and knit back. These stitches might be kind of loose because normally I don't tie on my yarn because I duplicate stitch weave on the wrong side later. So I just have to tighten that up to make sure it doesn't fall off the needles. And then I just repeat that 2 more times, knitting to the end on the right side row, the end minus 1 of these 2 of the trunk stitches. So slip knitwise, slip knitwise, knit to get 2 together through the back loops, and then turn and knit back. And then again, knit to the last of the trunk colored stitches. Slip knitwise, knit 2 together through the back loops, turn and knit back. Okay, so I'm not going to continue this because I think you get the idea. You can see that the trunk is starting to form, and to continue, just drape the frame color loosely just along this edge right here and continue working the trunk pattern stitch starting at row 24. So you just keep going along. Each time you complete a right side row, that join eliminates or decreases one of the stitches. And when you get to the end, you'll have no stitches left and you bind off. I hope that was helpful. So until next time, happy knitting!